When Mother Teresa was alive, many people sought to go be by her side and volunteer for a time in India. One of the people who went was an American who spent an entire month there. And she tells the story about the day that she and Mother Teresa were giving out rice to an endless line of poor people who came there with empty buckets. Her job was to take a bowl and to take the rice out of the bag and fill the bucket so the person could bring it home. And the story goes that one woman in the line that day had 2 buckets. And so this volunteer watched as Mother Teresa filled each of her buckets up halfway. And the volunteer didn't like the looks of that, because it just felt like if she has 2 buckets, we should be filling them all the way. And she heard that that woman had 2 buckets because she was going to bring rice to a sick neighbor that she had. So the volunteer, wanting to be helpful, said to Mother Teresa, "Oh, I think you're making a mistake. You should fill these buckets up all the way because she's bringing it to a neighbor." And Mother Teresa said, "She can't carry 2 full buckets. It's too heavy." And then the volunteer, trying to be helpful, said, "Shouldn't we ask someone to maybe bring the second bucket to her house for her so that she can do that?" And Mother Teresa finally took the volunteer aside and said, "This woman is here to share rice with her neighbor. She may be poor, but we should never take away anyone's right to be generous." It was important not to give the woman more rice because the sharing was an important part of what she was doing with that rice. That's what it means to be human. Humans have a drive to share. It's part of who we are. It's in our DNA. It's the way that God made us and designed us. In fact, there's a Haitian proverb that says, "God gives everything, but God does not share." Only humans can share. God gives, and it's up to us to share. Growing up in Rochester, there was, at a time when I was young, a homeless man who was very well known in town. He was beloved. His name was Dimitri, and he had been an alcoholic for years and had pretty much lived in parking garages most of his life. He was very sweet and kindly, and everyone loved him, and everyone was trying to help him, but some of his problems were bigger than any one person could help him with. So people would be very charitable to him. There's a story that one day, a woman who knew him from the community and loved him was unloading groceries in her driveway out of the trunk of her car. And Dimitri wandered by, as he might to anybody, and said, "Hey, do you need any help unloading your groceries?" And she said, "Thank you, Dimitri, I'm doing fine. I appreciate it, though." And then so he did what she expected he might do. "Hey, do you have any money?" And she said, "You know what? I'm sorry. Today I don't. I just went shopping, and I don't have any money." And his face just was filled with shock. He said, "Wait a minute. You don't have any money?" And it made her nervous. She wondered if he was drunk. She wondered if maybe he was going to be violent. And so she kind of stiffened up and said, No, Dimitri, I don't have any money." And he reached into his pocket and pulled out $1. And he said, "Here you go." The money that he got from begging that day. Because it's human to share. It's in his DNA. It's in all of our DNA. It's how God designed us. It's a need that we have. It's a drive that we have. God gives us everything, but God doesn't share. That part is up to us. There are certain rules in the Bible that are not punitive. They're not punishments. They're rules that are based on how we're made. They're the way that God helps us to understand our design. They're like the manufacturer's instructions. And one of them is, you can work 6 days, work your heart out, but on the 7th day, you must rest. That's not a rule that's mean or punitive. It's a design rule. You can work hard on 6 days, but not 7 days, or it'll fall apart. You have to rest on the seventh day. And that's because God knows that to be balanced and happy, there's certain rules we have to live by. We can't be balanced and happy if we don't rest, and we can't be balanced and happy if we don't share. So a really good way for us to understand this design is that God did not make us to live on 100% of our resources. We are meant to live on not quite 100% of our resources. We are meant to live at a lesser level, and for the delta, the gap between what we're living on and what we have total, that needs to be given to people in need and organizations in need. So the way that Jesus talks about that today is learn a lesson from the fig tree. Pay attention to how trees must give fruit. They must. Do you remember that story about a fig tree in another gospel where the fig tree is not giving any fruit? And the master says, cut down the tree. Why should it exhaust the soil if it's not going to give fruit? And we hear the wisdom, no, first fertilize it, take care of it, tend to it. And then if no fruit comes, you know that it's too sick to live and you can cut it down. The way you know a tree is healthy is if it has fruit on the branches. And the way we know that a person's soul is flourishing is if it's natural for them to share. The psalm that we heard today is such an important realization for us all. It's the awareness that while we must do what is ours to do, our truest inheritance is not up to us. You are, O God, my inheritance. I have all I need. God is our true inheritance. We don't come here to sing about our 401k. Now, it may be that that is a part of our inheritance, but that's not what we're here to assert. We must do what is ours to do, but we are made and designed to share some of what we have. So one thing that's really important for us to realize is there is no prescription for this. I can't tell you what is the right percentage for you to live on and what is the right percentage for you to give away. I can tell you that it should not be 100%, that that's not how we're designed. So I can share with you something that might be helpful to you. Most priests don't go into this level of detail, but if you're thinking about this and if you've never thought about the percentage idea before, I'd like to share with you what has happened in my life. It's become clear to me that God is calling me, in my own situation, not yours, to live on 90% of my income, 90%, which gives me what I need, and it gives me 10% that I can use elsewhere. So when I was the pastor of 2 churches down in Greene County, I would give 2.5% of my income to each church. It felt like the right thing to do. Now that I'm the pastor of 1, I'm going to give 5% to St. Mary's. And I'm an e-giver, so it makes it very easy. It's a once a month. It's not a decision, it's just math. I did the calculator, here's the amount, here's what it'll be every month. Now that gives me, because I'm living on 90%, it gives me essentially play money to give to things that matter to me. And I will tell you that since I've come here, I have fallen in love with St. Mary's St. Alphonsus School. I just love it. I can't believe how wonderful it is. I can't believe how dedicated everybody over there, all the teachers and staff are. I just love it. So I have decided that I'm going to give 1% to SMSA. It's just a very simple thing. It's just math, 1%. You've gotten some mail recently from the diocesan appeal, and I know that about 30% of that appeal, one of the biggest chunks there is, goes to seminary education for future priests. So what I know is, anybody who gave to that appeal 10 years ago, you brought me here. You did not know that you were doing it. You didn't know whose education you were paying for, but it was mine. I was in the seminary from 2009 to 2013. So I want to pay that forward. And I know we've got Father Matt Duclos, who's so well known to everyone here. He has 2 years left of his studies. And so I want to contribute to that. So I've decided I'm going to give 0.5% to the diocesan appeal. And that gives me 3.5% left. So when I get that pile of mail that we were talking about last week, it allows me to say, I have the ability to, without stress, give to those organizations. And what is it going to be? It's whatever organization touches your heart. For me, when I get mail from St. Jude's Children's Hospital, that makes a big impact on me. But maybe for you, it's the Humane Society, or it's the Make-A-Wish Foundation, or it's Toys for Tots, or it's the Open Door Mission, or it's Next Steps, or whatever it might be. It might be a local organization, or it might be something national. Once I know that it's reputable, I then can, not in a moment of stress, but in a moment of calmness, say, this money isn't mine. God already revealed to me that this is supposed to be given. So I can write those checks or go online and give that money in peace. So this week we are being given an opportunity to do some praying about that. I think that is the perfect thing for us to bring to our prayer time. What is it that we would like to do with the resources God has given us? What is God calling us to do? What percentage are we meant to live on? 97%? 95%? What in our family situation is the right amount for us to consider living on? And then we can ask what God is asking us to do with the rest. Taking care of our parish feels like an essential part of that. And maybe you'd like to join me in a regular gift to the school. But what other things? What is your heart being called to pay attention to? And then we get a chance to recognize in a deeper way, you, God, are our inheritance. We don't need to worry. We just need to follow our design. Because God gives us everything we have. But there's one thing God will not do. God does not share. That is up to us.